Hello, and thank you so much for tuning in to the She Can Ball podcast. I'm your host, Mahi Jariwala. Today we are joined by a very special guest, Imani McGee-Stafford. She is a forward for the Dallas Wings, a poet, mental health advocate, and aspiring lawyer. Thank you so much for coming on today. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you for having me. I think it's awesome that you're using your platform and your voice at such a young age.
Thank you. And so how are you? How's your quarantine been?
Quarantine sucks, but I feel like it sucks for everyone, right?
Yeah.
I'm naturally a homebody. So like the fact that I couldn't go anywhere didn't change anything. But I think the fact that like I actually have to be a homebody now has kind of been getting to me. So finding ways to like get outside and do different things have been really helpful.
Yeah, and I know that you're studying right now to become a lawyer. So how's that been?
Law school is as hard as they say it is. And I feel like I still kind of have this like crazy joke of, oh my gosh, I'm in law school. Like I'm really in law school. And so hopefully that'll wear off soon, but it's still like every day I'm like, I'm in law school. This is crazy.
Is it all online or are you doing classes?
Yeah. So my whole first year will be online, and realistically it's a 2-year program. So realistically we'll probably be online the entire time. I think the school hasn't said that yet, but that's probably because my school's in LA. So like LA is still very locked down. So being at home and doing homeschool essentially is also different. Shout out to kids and parents everywhere, because like I never could have did this.
How long is it? Like what does your schedule look like?
Yeah, so I'm taking 4 classes this quarter. And so I basically am in class since my school's in LA and since I'm on the East Coast, it's really like 12 to 5.
Wow.
And so that's kind of my school day. And then like I normally wake up and study before class and do everything and then go from there.
That's awesome. So I want to begin this interview talking about your story and how you got to where you are today. So tell us about where you grew up and what was your childhood like?
Yeah, so I was born in Inglewood, California. I grew up in an abusive household. I hate saying that because it makes it sound like my parents are like evil people. And in reality, it wasn't that they're terrible people. They just kind of trusted the wrong people with me. So I was sexually abused, neglected, physically abused. And so these are things that I dealt with. And I was very depressed growing up because like the thing about growing up in chaos, you don't understand that that's not right. You think that that's normal. You think everyone else is experiencing these things, or you feel very on the opposite end of the spectrum. You feel very isolated and you feel like no one else is experiencing these things. And either way, like it's kind of something in the middle, right? Yeah. Other people have experienced the same trauma I have, and they understand that, right? And then on the other hand, like this isn't normal. Mm-hmm. This is not what a loving household is going to look like. This is not what loving relationships look like. But if you've never experienced those things, this is your kind of hallmark for what love looks like.
Yeah. And, that's tough and that's very difficult to deal with, especially at a young age. And so what was kind of your experience with dealing with that? And how were you able to overcome that?
So like growth is a lifelong experience, right? Like, so it's healing. And like, there's still things that trigger me. And I don't think I'll ever be like over it, right? It'll always be something that I have to be cognizant of, right? Mm-hmm. But it took a very long time. It took a very, very long time. And I think the first step was understanding that like what I experienced wasn't normal. And that is not what love looks like. And that's not what love shows itself as, right? And so just definitely for me, it took a while. And once I got to college, I got the mental health resources I never was able to afford, nor did my family necessarily believe in. And that helped me kind of like name my demons and work through the trauma I had. And from there, I've kind of just been taking active steps.
Awesome. And, I know that can be hard, like you said. And so why do you feel so passionate about like helping other people? And now you're kind of a mental health advocate.
My biggest thing was like, I found my life purpose when I was 19. I realized that the reason I tried to kill myself 3 times and then none of them worked, right? And I realized like somebody bigger than me is calling the shots. And when I figured that out, I had to figure out what my purpose was. And the reason I have the trauma and the story I have is because I also have the platform to share this story. So when I was 19, I decided that I was going to live out loud and I was going to share what it looked like to be somebody living bipolar. I found out later in life. And also survivor of sexual abuse and trauma. And I think when we see it in pop culture, we only see the extremes, right? We see somebody ready to jump off a bridge, or we see somebody that's perfectly happy and nothing's wrong. Yeah. And in reality, we're all on that spectrum somewhere. So my goal is to use the platform basketball gives me to show you what it looks like to kind of go through life, right? And sometimes I'm a hot mess and I experience that with others. And sometimes I'm like a role model, I guess, right? Yeah. And so for me, being a mental health advocate was showing that not everyone is able to tell their story. Not everyone has this voice or this platform, and not everyone is not in active danger. Some people are still living in active danger and can't tell their story. So for me, every time I kind of feel nervous or I'm scared, I meet somebody and they're like, I have this story. Thank you so much for sharing it. I remember I met a woman who was like in her 70s, and she was like, I was abused by my grandfather. And as soon as I got enough courage to tell my family he died, and I didn't want to dampen the party. I didn't know what to do at that point.
Yeah.
And she was like, I've held this for so long. Thank you so much for doing the work you're doing, right? And I can't imagine holding that weight by myself for 50 years, right? So my goal is to show people like, yeah, life happens. Things are hard. And hopefully, like, you never have to experience what I've experienced. But on the other side of things, there is an other side of things. Like, I remember when I was a teenager, I used to say, the light at the end of my tunnel got turned off. I used to say, there's a sign at the end of my tunnel that says, no light, it's over. Like, and that's so morbid and dark, but that's really how I felt, right? Like, I never thought I'd live past 18. I was sure I'd either die or I'd kill myself. And the fact that I'm 26 and I'm okay, what? That's crazy. You couldn't have told 15, 16-year-old me kicked out of my house, running away from home, suicidal, in a mental institution, that I would be this person today. And even people that know me since I was a child are like, we never thought this would be who you turned out to be, right?
Yeah.
So it's just a testament to, one, God's power over my life, and two, people pouring into me, right? Like, for everybody that gave up on me, for everybody that said no, there was somebody on the other side that cared about me. And it's so annoying because I'm getting choked up thinking about it. But there's no such thing as an island, right? Everyone likes to say that they're self-made and they did it themselves. No one can do this thing themselves. We're humans. We need human interaction, right? We need somebody to say, like, I love you. Yeah. And I'm going to work with you, and I'm going to be here even when I don't like you, even when you're not the best person to be around, even when you make bad decisions, I'm going to love you. And I had people do that for me. And so my goal is to give that love to the world and make safe spaces. And like, I'm getting choked up because I'm really passionate about this and I really believe this is my life purpose. So I try my hardest to do that every day and be the person that I needed when I was younger.
And that's so amazing. And you're doing that. And I think, people live their whole life going through their life thinking, I don't have a purpose. Like, I didn't do anything. People go dying and, thinking I could have done something. I could have changed this world. And that's what you're doing in so many ways. And I think you're a role model for women. You're a role model for people that are going through that right now, because it is happening, and I think especially for me, because I've never got to experience that. Even like with racism, I've never experienced that. I've never experienced sexual abuse, but it happens. And it's so bad that we just let it happen. We just go, all right, next topic.
Exactly. And I think also just like my stature, right? Like, I'm 6'7". I've always been a tall kid, right? Like, I was 5'4" in 5th grade. Like, I've always been tall.
Yeah.
And so when you see me, right, I have this big boisterous personality. I'm goofy. I giggle. No one looks at me and says like, oh, that's a victim. That's a sexual abuse victim. Because when we all have a picture of somebody frail or somebody that, like, you don't see me. And so like, my biggest thing is to tell people, so like, we can get this image out of our head, because there is no victim. It happens to everyone. It happens to people that are strong. It happens to people that are brave and tough. And it happens to people it's about abuse of power, right? It's not about who that person is. So I try to show people, like, because you don't look at me and think, I don't look anything like what I've been through, right? Yes. So I try to just be open about that. And I think also, like, it's up to us to change the world, right? Like, I think everyone kind of gets nervous and they think like, well, who's going to listen to me, right? Like, I can't change the world. No one cares about who I am. But you start by changing your family. You start by changing your environment. And if you change this one person you interacted with, if you made them feel okay today, if you made them feel great, you said something, that's changing the world. It literally starts by changing the people you're around. That's it.
Exactly. And you've gone through so much. And so you still play basketball and you still, are this amazing player. And so how is basketball kind of something that helped you with all these other things that you were going through mentally and at home?
Man, I really miss basketball right now. And I didn't think I would miss it this much.
Yeah.
But for me, growing up, basketball was my safe haven. Like, I would go to the gym. Like, I would go, like, my safe people in growing up, especially when I was like out of my house and bouncing from family member to family member, like, my safe place was my basketball trainer and my high school basketball coach. Those are the people that kept me under their wing and kept me safe. Like I remember I would be with my basketball trainer from like 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. Like I would go work out, we go to lunch, we go work out, we go to the movie, we go to dinner. Like I was just always with him because he knew like this was my safe place. So like basketball was always just like a place where I could forget about what happened outside of me, right?
Yeah.
And as I got older, it became my way out. Like I wanted to, I knew I needed to get out of my environment. So it was, let me get a scholarship to college and go away. That's it. That's all. And figure myself out. So like for me, like basketball was my safe place and it got me out of the environment that was toxic and dangerous for me. And now it gives me the chance to chase my dreams, right? Like as much as I want to think that I'm just super smart and I got into law school, a lot of that came with the fact that I'm a WNBA player. They want to graduate a WNBA player. So they gave me a chance, right? So basketball has given me access. It's given me opportunities that I probably never would have had. I'm 26. I own my own house. I'm able to travel the country and the world. Like I've lived in 5 different countries and like that happens because of basketball. Like it's a very much a vehicle. And I tell people all the time, right? Like basketball is a vehicle. For some of us, it'll stop in middle school. For some of us, it'll stop in high school. For some of us, it'll stop in college. But it's a vehicle. You get what you give it, right? You give your all to the game and you'll get a lot of experiences. And like, everyone's always just like, I got to be a D1 player. That's not for everyone. And a lot of times it's just like a great thing to put on my college resume. It's a great way to make friends, right? It's an after school activity. It's a great way to get out of the house and stay in shape. It doesn't always have to be like, I want to be a WNBA player. It could just be, I want to make friends and work out and have fun.
Exactly. And so kind of shifting over to your college experience, how was kind of your experience playing at UT?
I love that university. I bleed burnt orange, Longhorn all day. And I credit that university for saving my life. I don't know that I would be the person I am had I not gone to Texas and experience like college was a transformative experience for me, for sure. I found my voice in college and something for so long was so hard for me to do was share myself. And I found my voice in college, right? Like I got the mental health resources I need. We couldn't afford it growing up. And I didn't really come from a family that believed in mental health resources. I didn't grow up in healthcare. So like everything was, if you're not dead, put some ice on it, take a nap, drink some ginger ale. Like that was kind of my childhood. So I got to college and I had mental health resources. I had a therapist. I had health insurance. Like I had all these things that I never had at my disposal, right? Like I had money in my pocket. I had my own bedroom and my own dorm room, and I had all these experiences. So like I definitely love the University of Texas, and I will always love that university. And I had an environment where people not only wanted to support me, but they made me figure it out. Like I very much grew up and was my own person. I did it by myself. And I was a very big believer of, I got here by myself. Why do I need anyone else? And my freshman year of college, the lesson was you can't do it alone. No man is an island. And like, I used to get in trouble because I was late to things. I was big mouth, talk back. And my coaches quickly realized, if you punish me by myself, I'm going to do it again. If you punish the team, I'm going to feel terrible. So they stopped punishing me and they started punishing the team. And now the team's mad. I feel so bad. And quickly I figured out how to get in line, right? But I had gone through life my whole time, like by the grit of my teeth, like I've been by myself.
Yeah.
What do you mean I can't do it alone? And like, you know, like that's the biggest lesson I learned in college was having people that genuinely cared about me. And they also allowed me to explore other things outside of basketball and really nurtured my full identity, which everyone can't say, right? Everyone's not that blessed. And I guarantee I would not be here had I not gone to Texas. It literally helped me find my life purpose and put me on this path.
Yeah, and you know, it's a huge reason of why I make this podcast, and it's to show girls that there's also more to life than basketball, and there's so much stuff that
for sure
in our world. And it's just sometimes I feel like we're locked into this bubble, like this is the path, right? You go to D1 and you play WNBA, and that's it. There's nothing else that you can do, but there's so much more, and you're doing that right now. So
I'm trying.
Yeah. And so what inspired you to postpone your WNBA career to pursue a career in law?
I say everything is a God thing. I had started looking into law school in 2018 when Brett Kavanaugh got confirmed. Well, let's start here, actually. The WNBA does a really cool program along with the NBA and other professional sports. It's called Harvard Crossover to Business Program. So you basically get to be a fake Harvard business student for a semester.
Wow.
And you kind of get to pretend you're in Harvard Business School. So it's really cool. Like the first day you go to campus and you sit through a class and you get like mentors who are actual Harvard Business School students. And like you get to take the picture in front of the Harvard sign. And you're like, I went to Harvard, mom. And like, it's like really cool. And it kind of reinvigorated my yearning to learn. Like I'm a nerd. I've always been a nerd. Like basketball was for me for a very long time, like the way I got to go to school. I could care way more about school than basketball. And as I got older, I kind of took basketball more serious. But I just was like, ooh, I want to go back to school. And so I started looking into things, and I knew I wanted to focus on women and gender and sexuality studies, something in that area, because that's things I'm very passionate about.
Yeah.
I'm very passionate about feminism and LGBTQIA rights. And I also was like, man, I just want to really move the needle. And so then Brett Kavanaugh got confirmed. And, you know, I don't know if he actually assaulted Dr. Ford. I don't know. But I do know that hopefully that's enough to not get you confirmed into the highest power in the land, right? Yep. That's what I would hope. And then Trump gets elected. And I'm like, so we really just don't care about women. Cool, great. I probably knew that. And I was just like, man, I want to do something to really move the needle. Like, how do I do that? And law school felt like the only realistic thing. Mm-hmm. And I didn't think it was going to be during my career. I definitely thought it'd be something I did after I retired. Yeah. And then coronavirus happened. And I really didn't think we were going to have a season. And I was like, all right, well, I'm going to have to get a job. I got to pay bills. Like, what are we going to do? And I was like, you know what? Let me just apply to school. Let's just try it. Yeah. Right. And I had mentioned to somebody in our front office at the Dallas Wings, like, I think I want to go to law school. And she actually just started at Howard Law. And she was like, I took the LSAT, like, take all my study materials. And I was like, it's just a thought. And she was like, no, just do it. Just take it, look at it, just try. She was like, you can do it. It's so funny. Like I said, like, it's about people believing in you. Yeah. Had she met me with, like, your basketball, what? I probably would have been like, you're right. I'm a basketball, right? Like, I might have been, like, not as forthcoming about, like, what I really wanted to do. And so, like, I started studying for the LSAT, and I took it while I was playing in Australia. And then coronavirus happened, and I'm like, what are we going to do? And I was like, you know what? Let's just apply. I literally applied to one school, the school I'm going to. And I was like, I'm not going to get in, whatever. I'll try to get in a couple of years when I retire. And I got in with a 50% scholarship. And the funny part about it is, like, everyone's like, wow, you're so great. You just quit ball to go to school. And I'm like, no, I had to decide for school before the WNBA decided what we were doing. Yeah. And so I was like, okay, I guess we're going to school. Like, and that's kind of how it happened. And I called my agent, and I was sure he was going to be like, you're crazy. You're going to quit to go to school. And he was like, is this what you want to do? And I was like, yeah. And he was like, all right, that's where we're going to law school. And then he was like, you got to call your team. And I called my team, and they were like, wow, we're so proud of you. Like, this is amazing. We're going to suspend your contract, which means once I go back in the WNBA, like, my contract is still there. They have to honor what they were paying me. And they easily could have cut me and not had any liabilities to me. And instead, they're like, nah, we got you. Like, come back. We want you. And, like, that support matters, right? Like, if I would have been met with different responses, I don't know if I would be here. So definitely a God thing.
Yeah. Awesome. And, you know, I know that you're also very passionate about the Black Lives Matter movement. And so what policies are you looking to push both for the Black Lives Matter movement and for helping the sexual abuse laws get better?
Man, so, like, I want to be a research lawyer, which is basically like a behind the scenes person. I don't want to be a litigator. I don't want to be in the courtroom every day. I really just want to do the work and prove to people, like, these are things we can change, and this is why we should, right? Yeah. And I think also, like, people research what they know. There's not a lot of Black women that are lawyers. There's not a lot of Black women in places of power. Yeah. Shout out to Kamala Harris. But that's not a thing, right? So we don't have a lot of research about how these things disproportionately affect Black women, because who's researching us? No one. Exactly. So I want to do that work and then hopefully help change laws on the appellate level, focusing on access to mental health and LGBTQIA rights and women's rights and sexual violence and Black Lives Matter, because, like, I'm a Black woman. These are all things that directly affect me. So
that's awesome. And, you know, I think in the grand scheme of things, like, coronavirus thing in a way has helped bring awareness to so many of these issues. It's an absolute thing for me, and I think people that aren't African American and don't get racially profiled, or even people that aren't, because I know that right now the situation for a lot of people that are sexually being harassed, especially at home, because sometimes their situation can be really bad at home. But I think it's amazing what you're doing. I love that you're working to do this. What advice do you have for young girls looking to pursue basketball?
Man, have fun. Have fun. Make sure that it's something you do that genuinely brings you happiness. I think we often are like so focused, and this is a lesson that I'm literally learning as we speak. This has been like my biggest lesson. I'm a very destination, goal oriented person. I'm very much like, this is where I want to be. This is how I get there. If I don't get this, then I failed. And in reality, it's more about the journey than it is the destination. And I've been learning that right now because this is law school. It's a process. It won't be accomplished this month, next month. It's going to be a 2-year process. And I'm used to instant gratification. And so, like, sitting in this part that's hard and I don't necessarily see myself moving. And instead of being so focused on the end, focusing on right now and being excited about that, I think that's a very big lesson for me. And I think it's a very good lesson about basketball. Like, my high school teammates are still my friends. Like, I still talk to them. I still talk to some of my college teammates. And like, the memories I have aren't about winning. It was really like us going on a bus trip to a game. It was us hanging out in the locker room. It was the chant we did before games. Like, it was those things that I remember the most. So I always tell people, like, really just focus on getting better every day, putting your all into something. And wherever that takes you is where it takes you. Like, obviously you need to have goals, but you have to focus on the everyday part and enjoy that as well.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on. I love talking to you.
Thank you for having me. You're so awesome. And I'm so proud of you. And if no one tells you today, right, what you're doing matters, your voice matters. And I'm so happy that you figured that out at such a young age. And I just really can't wait to see you grow up.
Thank you. I can't wait to see what you're going to do. I love that you're taking initiative. And I think we talked about this before, but it's so important that people do. And we have access to so much stuff. We really, really do. And so thank you for coming on. I really appreciate your time. And that's the end of the podcast. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Make sure that you are following us on Instagram at she.can.ball, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.